Hi, everyone. This is Renee Rentmeester. I'm creator and executive producer of the Cooking Without Looking TV show and podcast. And speaking of podcasts, today we have Sharon O'Shea. Hello, Sharon.
Hello there.
How are you doing?
Very chilly up here in New England.
Oh man, yeah, it's getting close to the holidays. We're like only a week away.
No, I can't believe it. But you know what? It's cookie season.
That's right. You can't complain about that, can we?
No.
Well, Sharon, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Oh, excuse me. Well, I grew up in Hawaii and I decided to study in California. So I went off to college in California and stayed there for a bit of time. And after being there and working, I decided I kind of wanted to explore more of the country and the world. So I spent some time traveling around the US, visiting friends in different regions and different states. And it was a lot of fun. I learned how to polka in Wisconsin and get
I'm
a
from Wisconsin.
are you? Yeah, I swam in a big giant lake for the first time and had a
Oh, wow.
turkey fry for the first time. It was amazing, and had a Philly cheesesteak in Philadelphia for the first time, all those things. So, and eventually ended up in New England.
Well, tell us
Uh,
a little bit about your blindness.
about um 9 years ago. Up until then, I had 20/20 vision, so I never had any type of issues or had to even just wear glasses for reading. And then I started having some light sensitivity where it was with headaches, and I started noticing I couldn't thread a needle anymore, like things that were very small and detailed. And after a few months, it progressed and got worse. And the doctors told me that my retina was detaching. And at the time, they thought it was diabetic retinopathy. And unfortunately, it wasn't. So they did surgery to try to reattach it. And what it turned out to be is a an autoimmune um,
Oh, wow.
disorder. Yeah. So it's uveitis is the eye condition, but it's VKH syndrome. So white Kianagi Hirata syndrome. And it's something that if it's caught early, they can treat it, but you still have they treat it with steroids and medications and stuff. You still have some usable vision, but because they thought it was diabetic retinopathy and they did the surgeries, they weren't able to save my retina. So over the course of that year, or some surgeries and medications, nothing worked. So I lost it, and so I have no light perception left. So that's
Ah,
yes up until now. It's been a process. It's been a big, long process of relearning everything, technology, and one of the biggest things for people I know who had vision loss, they miss driving, and I say that I cried when I had to give up my car. It was
oh,
really, we hung on to it for a year before we ended up selling it because I think for me it was in denial
sure.
that having to let that independence go. But on the good side of it is that we're at a point that technology is advanced and I have so many options. So I switched from using an Android at the time and a Windows-based things to everything is iOS now. Everything on the Apple has basically changed.
They're really
The
excellent for people who are blind visually.
yeah, Yeah, and when I first started, I tried to use my Android phone with it, but those the first year, um, I couldn't do anything with it. It wouldn't dial, do anything. So I just sat at home with, with the um, cordless phone. So if I needed to call 911, I could at least call 911 and a remote control. And that was for the TV. That was the extent of what I could do because, I didn't really have anyone to teach and learn.
Well, how
So
did you break out of that?
I started at first the state tried to get me into a program to um, go back to work. And I think one of the problems with that is that they were focused on that part of it and not the emotional devastation of what had happened.
Sure.
And so they were like, well, here's a laptop, and then we'll try and send someone to you. And the person was from 2 states away, and she came
Oh my God.
once. Yeah, she came once, and then COVID happened.
Oh my
So,
God.
and
A
then so
double
nobody,
whammy.
right, nobody could come to your house. And so, doing some research, my husband is in technology, so we both looked at it and he says, well, we'll get you an iPad, we'll get you an iPhone, and we'll start. And it just so happened that the Apple store, there are two that are close by. The one we chose to go to get the phone set up and get some training on it, had a gentleman who worked there who was completely blind. And so he was an expert on how to use voiceover and everything. And that was basically the first introduction to me and on technology. And he gave me a whole list of websites and put me in touch with the organization in my state and just so much. And it really kind of put me on the path to feel like, well, if he can do this and be out, and he was studying in college and working, and I thought, wow, okay, there's things out there, there's technology, there's people, there's a community, um, just work on it. So that really kind of put me on a path. And then it helped that my husband switched all of his devices to also work with me because there were levels of frustration of, not knowing how to use certain things and why things, and with Apple, there's so many updates all the time. And I thought, well, that worked yesterday and now it doesn't work today. So,
Oh, I know.
yeah. So I think on not that level, and then I started listening to a lot of different podcasts and just seeking out as much information from people, from, any type of articles, anything I could find that would help me get into, to learning more about this, to being more independent. So
Now, tell us a little bit about your cooking. How did you get into cooking? Did you always like cooking? What was that like?
I always cooked. So I think that was one of the big benefits of the prior to losing my vision. I always cooked. So I think that I considered, cooking and baking was something that I already did well. And now with adapting the tools I already had in my kitchen to to using it now has been pretty easy. I think that I didn't have to really buy new things to basically to be able to cook. I think that the one exception is we bought a smart microwave. And that's kind of that's it. But
One of
I
the
use
talking
a
microwaves?
no, it works with the smart speaker.
Oh.
So it can, you know, you can just tell the smart, the woman to to basically cook at, whatever time and how many, what level. And I think part of what helped is that our kitchen is older. It was built in the 80s. So the stove is a gas stove that has everything's tactile.
Oh,
And plus I used it before I became blind. And so, there's the knobs are across the front and they're, just for regular open flame with the grills on top and then the oven. So that was to me an advantage because I always like cooking with gas. So it to me the transition is just I'm a little more careful now if I do anything that involves more, for example, like a stew or something that takes a long time. I won't
right.
do those if someone isn't home just because there are multi steps. But if I'm just going to fry an egg or something, then I don't find a problem. Like I'll do like kielbasa and beans or something simple like that. I don't
Sure.
have a problem with it because those things, do cook pretty quickly. But if it's an involved dish which involves leaving the flame on for a long period of time, then usually I wait until I have someone around just in case. That
Do you find that
that's mhm.
do you find that your cooking was sort of cathartic to get you through your blindness?
I think that what it did is it made me feel like I wasn't helpless because there were many other things that put me in that position. The even just walking out to take the garbage out or to check the mail, those sorts of things, I still am apprehensive about it just because cars are around and they those sorts of things. So I feel at least in the kitchen, it's familiar, it's comfortable, and I'm confident in the tools that I have that are again familiar. So it does, yeah, it does help. It really does, and it's therapeutic.
It is, and I think for all of us, even me, if I've had a really busy day, all I want to do is get in the kitchen and cook up something like really big. Not even like a sandwich. Let me just cook something big over here, you know?
And for years I lived alone. And when I graduated from college, I had a few roommates and then they went off and did their own thing. So a big block of many, many years, even though I was dating someone, I always lived alone and I still cooked. I would, come home from work and I would make something because it just felt, again, like that, the transition into being at home, comfortable, and also if I cooked, it meant I had something to take for lunch the next day. So I always, did things like that. And my dad was a really fantastic cook, and he always said, when you cook for an army, even if you're alone. So,
I do the same thing. I'm by myself with my dog here, Brownie.
mhm.
And I always cook a lot. Like if I cook as if I have like 5 people. And a lot of times I'll just give
Uh,
it to people, neighbors or something,
mhm.
people who don't like to cook as much, and
Right.
which I can't even understand.
But I understand that. And there have been a few times that I've had friends come over where they wanted to learn a dish or something. And I'm finding that their styles are very different from mine, and it doesn't mean that they're bad cooks. It's just that I
It's just
think
different.
being more organized is really important. And some people are less aware of that sort of thing. So I think it helps to really, have your things lined up, or at least where you are. The funny thing is, though, it's like sometimes my husband will, he'll, he'll put stuff in the refrigerator and I'll have no idea where
Oh
they are.
no.
So I have to, I would like text him like, "Hey, where did you put?" He'll say, he goes, "I put them on," and he'll just say this shelf. So those sorts of things kind of, but in general, in the kitchen cabinets, he's really good about, we kind of put the same things we use often in the same place. And, just
Oh,
sometimes it's the refrigerator things that, or the freezer things that I get
yeah.
confused over. So.
That's rule number one. You take something out from one place and you put it right back into that place.
Yeah. Or, it's like, because if he gets some groceries or something, I'll say, "Oh, can you get some whatever sour cream or some sort of thing?" And he goes, "Well, I put it in, insert whatever stuff." And I'm like, "Well, that's not where I usually put it, but oh, wow, at least you got it." So,
Right? You get half a point, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, Sharon, you were the Cooking Without Looking recipe of the day. People can
Oh, nice.
find your recipe at www.cookingwithoutlookingtv.wordpress.com. And would you like to share that recipe with us?
Sure. I think I should get it up. Hold on a second.
It's a Bavarian
Yeah, it's a Bavarian tart. So I just
tart.
am getting the number of the measurements. So okay, so the thing with the Bavarian tart is that it's three separate steps, and the bottom crust is a shortbread type crust, and I
Mm,
make it in a spring form pan. And that's one of the things that I like about it, is that it makes it easier to of get out to cut and serve. But also, because it's in a tight spring form pan, the butter, the crust is the flour and butter with you know I gotta look it up, but with the um no, hold on, butter. I don't remember the measurements, but
well, they
um
can just go to the
yeah,
website.
and I crush nuts in it. I like putting
Oh,
nuts because it is shortbread. So I put some whole nuts in baggies, and then I'll use the back of a knife and kind of smash the nuts into it. So cream the butter in and the sugar, and then you mix in with the flour, and it's one of those that you crumble up so it's still a little crumbly, and then you press it into the pan like a shortbread. Just use your fingers, so you don't roll it out like a dough or anything. You just kind of press it in there and then bake that. One of the things about it is, especially if you want a nice crumbly crust, is to make sure it's cold, the butter. So usually what I do is I'll put the butter in the freezer for just 5 minutes or so. So it's not frozen, but it is cold. If you bring the butter to room temperature, the crust will be hard. So some people like that kind of crust that's a little stiffer. I like
right.
it crumblier. And then the second layer is, after that's done, you take it out, you let it cool, and you make the cream cheese um, center, the cake part, the tart part, and that is like a basic cream cheese, with eggs, with sugar, all mixed in just
Like
like
a
you would.
cheesecake.
It is a cheesecake. Yeah, it is a cheesecake. But I use a little smaller pan. because I like it thicker. I like a little bit thicker, I like the crust a little thicker. So, some people will use, 10-inch pan. Some will use 8, to make it taller. In the middle is the 9. So I think it depends on what you want. I think some other people do it in a square pan, but the spring form is always the best. So once you do that, it turns out it's very, very, it's a nice, creamy, smooth cheesecake, not heavy and dense as much as a New York cheesecake, but it is, it does have really good flavor. And then for the tart part, the pears, I do they have pear halves in water, in their juice. And I slice it, so I put it down because uh, they're already pitted and there's no skin on them and they've been sitting in the juices. So that how the pear has the slim part on the top and the more round on the bottom, the
Wow.
half, is I slice them up the way you would do apple slices, but thin, really thin slices across the long way of the pear. And usually with that, you get about 6 pieces out of one of the big pears. Sometimes they're smaller, I guess, depending on what, size can you have. And the tart, the pears go on the tart, on the cheesecake before it bakes. So what I did was I laid them kind of like a fan going around in circles. You start on the outside of the rim of the pan and then just circle around, kind of overlapping as you go, in one direction all the way around, and then do the next layer and the next layer.
It's really
Until,
pretty.
yeah, until you get to the center. So it's very, very, it looks festive and it tastes great. And then with the cinnamon, I have a very fine sieve, a small one that's the size of like an ice cream scoop. And so I'll
Oh,
hold that over the cheesecake and then I'll put the cinnamon in that little mesh sieve and just shake it a little so that you get some of that sprinkling on top so it looks pretty. And then bake it. And what it does is the butter from the crust will help with the juices and it'll bubble up and create sort of a like a crust that's, when butter caramelizes, so the juice from the pear drips down a little bit. And so when you take it out of the ring, the spring form after it's, cooled for a bit, you have that nice little sugary caramel crust going
oh,
around the
wow.
outside of it. It is, yeah, it's very delectable. It's so good. Yeah, it's one of
Sounds
my favorites.
amazing.
Yeah, it is. And the pears stay fairly soft, so they don't crisp up. So it's a nice little texture change from the pears, which are softer, to the cheesecake, and then the nice crumbly shortbread crust. So, and I use walnuts in the crust. I guess you could use other, pecans or macadamia nuts or something. I'm sure it'll work with other ones.
Pistachios, even maybe.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that as long as you crush them up nice, and I like the uneven texture of crush crushing them by hand than,
Oh,
as
yeah.
opposed to getting them already crushed, because then, some bites you'll get a big chunk of them. But yeah, it's a really great one. I think the last time I made it was like as a Mother's Day for Mother's Day. That was
Oh,
a while.
wow.
Yeah,
Well, shit.
it's good. Mhm.
No, no, go on. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay.
No, I was just gonna say that. Thank you so much. That just sounds like such an amazing dessert. And it sounds like it would be beautiful on a holiday table, this coming week or so. It sounds beautiful. But the last thing I wanted to ask you was, if you had to talk to someone who was going blind, what would you tell them?
That be gentle with yourself over the process. I think that's one of the things that it was really hard on myself with having to rethink the way that you do things, that it will work out. It's just you can do the same things, just different, sometimes a little slower. But also, don't be afraid to tell those around you how to interact with you. That I feel by telling friends, family, this is the way you show me, to lead me around. This is the way you communicate with me, or then I think with them, they become educated in helping you or whether you need help or not, that they understand and that there can be supportive in that kind of way. To me,
Yeah.
that, yeah, just be patient with yourself, really.
It's like all together, you're all learning together how to
Yes.
be different.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's okay to tell them. I tell everybody, the nurses, the first thing I ask a nurse, I'm like, have you ever guided a blind person? And they're like, no. And I said, well, this is the way you do it. And so the next time they encounter me at an appointment, they know how to guide me. And I think that, it gets frustrating because people grab you and they try, and I'll
Oh
just
my
say,
God.
I'll tell people, it's okay to talk to me, instead of talking to my husband or referring to me as her. I just say, you can
Right.
talk to me. Yep, just right off the bat. It's okay to talk to me. And I think if you are clear about your instructions, just like you're following a recipe, if the recipe says 2 cups of flour, then say it. Say, this is the way you guide me. This is the way, I don't need help. That be clear. And it's okay.
Well, Sharon, thank you so very much for being with us today. I really enjoyed it. I invite everyone to go and check out your recipe at www.cookingwithoutlookingtv.wordpress.com. There are also kitchen hacks there. Monday through Friday, you have their like new recipes and their new kitchen hacks to go along with each recipe. And if any of you would like to order an official Cooking Without Looking apron, the money goes to helping us continue to change the way we see blindness. Just go to our website at www.cookingwithoutlookingtv.wordpress.com and go to the PayPal link right close to the top of the home page. Also, you do not need a PayPal. You can use any card you want, and you'll be helping us out, continuing the show and continuing the podcast. So, again, thank you so much, Sharon.
Thank you so much. This was a lot of fun, and I really do appreciate everything that you're doing and all the information that's there. It helps, build a really fantastic, fun community.
Oh, thank you so much, Sharon. Thank you. And you're part of that community. So, you take care. Have a
You
wonderful
too.
holiday season.
Thank you. You too.
Okay, bye bye.